To see the fully uncut version of this video, head over to patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons.
What's that like to live deliciously? Chaos reigns.
Please don't scream.
Now, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
What's going on? My name is Jonjo Lyons, and today I'm here to present to you my review for Schramm. Written by Franz Rodenkirchen and Jorg Buttgereit, and directed by Jorg. Schramm stars all of these lot. As serial killer Lothar Schramm lies dying in his own blood, horrific memories of his miserable life of paranoia, self-harm and rejection flash before his eyes. A tragic look into the mind of a serial killer. You know, I'm starting to think you don't want any joy in your lives. I show you a movie about a zombie rapist? Nah. I provide a fun, silly, 90s-ish slasher? No thank you. Okay, fine. How about a movie where a serial killer nails his to a table? Oh, do I have your attention now, you sick fucks? Schramm is another from the filmography of one of my favourite contributors to the genre, Jorg Buttgereit. Jorg is responsible for the Necromantic series, which I covered on a channel a while ago, and The Death King. A beautiful yet depressing as fuck little film that I covered all the way back when I had ginger hair. It's no secret that I love the man's work, and now in need of something shocking, I'm going back to the well and digging out this serial killer story. I don't know that much about this one, other than the fact that it's supposed to be really good, and at one point he nails his to a table, so let's not waste any more time. Get ready to remember that no one gets a happy ending, especially you. This is Schramm. The movie begins with a quote from serial killer Carl Panzram, which reads, "Today I am dirty, but tomorrow I'll be just dirt." Carl Panzram, in case you don't know, was a ridiculously brutal serial killer. Google him if you never want to sleep again. Cut to the opening credits where we see out of focus flashes of moving bodies and hear the rhythmic breathing of an unknown individual. Cut to this newspaper as the front page reports the lonesome death of the lipstick killer. We focus in on the man's face, then cut to a wooden floor splattered with white paint. The camera pans up as we see the white paint give way to puddles of deep red blood before revealing the face of the lipstick killer Lothar Schramm as he lay unconscious and slowly dying. We hear someone knocking on the front door as we cut to footage of people running a marathon and hear the rhythmic breathing once more. The camera spins down toward Lothar as time starts to reverse and his eyes begin to flicker. Cut outside the door where we meet Marianne, played by Monica M, who you might remember as the lead corpse from Necromantic 2. And my future wife. She continues to knock when we cut inside to see a now fully dressed Lothar answer the door, revealing these two.
Guten Tag. Haben Sie sich schon einmal Gedanken über Gott gemacht?
Yeah. Either he doesn't exist or just has a really fucked up sense of humour. How else would you explain my dad's insatiable need to be c***ed into by random strange men? It's not his fault, it's a part of him by the Lord's design. The mohawk, on the other hand, is his choice and he should be punished accordingly. Cut to Lothar as he stares at them with wide eyes and then to the door as he answers another knock, this time from Marianne. She says she's expecting the doctor at any minute and Lothar asks if that's the one who always wants to be alone first before offering her coffee. Marianne declines, saying she only needs a few minutes when Lothar asks if it bothers her to have a complete stranger roaming around in her flat. She replies special wishes come expensive as we cut back to Lothar dying and Marianne knocking at the door. Cut to Lothar touching the dry blood on his apartment wall and then mixing the paint which he will use to cover it up. Cut back to the religious folk at the door. They're here to talk about Jesus Christ and the man asks Lothar if he's ever realised what a creature of wonderful perfection man is. No, but my dad sure has, if you know what I mean, eh? Stressing that this cannot possibly be a trick of nature. They come in and we cut to Lothar offering them coffee or cognac, with the man going for a small one and the woman asking for coffee. Lothar says he's glad to have them there, then heads off to get the drinks as the pair watch him. They start to get comfortable when Lothar serves the cognac and goes to get the coffee. The man then smells his drink and has a sip when things take a turn for the worse. I love that moment. It's a combination of the sound and editing that make it super nightmarish, turning Lothar from this calm, sweetly spoken person into a monster. The woman screams as blood sprays everywhere, all over the walls, floor, and into the broken glass. Lothar then jumps over the sofa and attacks the woman with a hammer, hitting her over and over as he roars into her face. Cut to Lothar applying lipstick to the woman and then to him chilling on the sofa. We then see various shots of the bodies positioned in different ways as Lothar takes pictures. Cut to Lothar repainting the apartment. We see one of his legs is actually a prosthetic before flashing back to these two mucking about. They run and play as the flowers dance in the wind, and we cut back to Lothar as he lies in bed. He then lifts his now flesh leg and places it into this brace. He straps himself in and gets out of bed as we cut to this portrait and then to Lothar running without the brace. Cut to Lothar waking up in bed again. He reaches down to touch his leg but finds something amiss. He then lifts the covers to find his leg has been severed. Cut to Lothar scrubbing his hands clean in the sink. He finishes and splashes his face with water as we cut back to the marathon with the heavy breathing. We focus in on Lothar running, then cut to these two leaving Marianne's place. They say if she agrees to come, they'll be very happy, and she is exactly the type of girl that they have in mind. Marianne seems apprehensive, but the men promise her an attractive fee and tell her that their mansion is only 30 minutes away. They leave their card in case of any issue, and as Lothar passes, they say they'll be expecting her. Cut to Lothar in the shower scrubbing his forehead when the doorbell goes and he's joined by Marianne. She says she never normally works outside of her flat, but now they've asked her to go to their mansion. They have friends visiting for the weekend and would pay really well. She says she feels uneasy because they didn't say what she's supposed to do, but on the other hand, she's a little curious.
Naja, worum wird's da schon gehen?
Ich weiß nicht.
I'm sorry, but I just fucking love her. I understand that this might sound strange, but I really just want to be murdered by her while we bang. Necromantic 2 definitely had an effect on me, just not in the way that I expected. Oh, and that offer, by the way, only goes out to Monica M. I don't want your mum getting any funny ideas. So yeah, Monica, if you're watching, first of all, great job in these films, and second, I want you to kill me to death. I want to cut blood and ride your knife all the way to hell. Just send me a DM. Nice one. She says they examined her and said she had a nice voice and were very gentlemanlike. Lothar asks if she wants to go and she replies only if he can take her and wait outside the house. She says it would be reassuring to her and Lothar says it can be done but to remind him in time. Marianne says she doesn't want to pressure him but Lothar reiterates that he'll be glad to do it. She pops a kiss on him and says that she has to go as she's expecting a customer and he's always coming too early. That's not a surprise looking at the steady, Monica. Cut to later as Lothar listens through events and Marianne getting absolutely turned out. He starts feeling up something underneath the covers, which he then pulls back, revealing this. For the YouTube viewers, what we're looking at here is some kind of sex torso. Like a blow-up doll, but without the head or arms or legs. Just tits with a hole in the bottom. Wildly disturbing. A torso? Torso? Anyway, Lothar jumps on and starts fucking it. Lovely. We then pan over to the bathroom as Lothar enters and washes his load out of it. Cut to Lothar and Marianne dream dancing. Cut to Lothar driving Marianne to the mansion in his taxi. She enters as Lothar waits outside and sees this fella walking up to the front door. The front door opens to reveal Marianne now dressed like this. And if you think that costume looks familiar, it does. It does. She lets him in and peeks outside to check Lothar is still there before heading back in. Lothar then turns on the radio as we cut to him now in the dentist surgery. He looks around at the tools before being joined by the dentist. He checks to make sure the injection worked and then tells him to open wide.
Na, der fiel ja fast von selbst raus.
The dentist then notices something else that looks real bad and tells Lothar not to worry. He'll feel better soon. He then cuts his fucking eye out of his fucking face. The eye is removed and we see the dentist is now transformed into this woman. Cut to Marianne getting back in the car. Marianne says there were 5 men, the room was huge and had all this expensive furniture. The men were sitting there, 2 dressed in silk gowns and 1 came in from an adjoining room which appeared to be tiled. Presumably because tiles are easier to wipe down. She says she got the feeling someone else was in there when Lothar asks what it was they wanted and comments on her strange outfit. Also, as this conversation is going on, I love that looking outside of the car it seems to be spinning.
Die hat mir da eine gegeben, als ich kam. Und dann hat mich beim Anziehen gefilmt mit einer Videokamera.
The real memories mixing with this dreamlike experience. At first she thought they wanted to take turns on her, but they actually wanted to be pleased, always watching to see if she could handle their demands, like it was some kind of application test. They also want her to come back, which she says she can hardly refuse as she's done worse things for a fraction of the pay. And as this exchange goes down, we also see Lothar hobbling up to the mansion door and being turned away by Marianne as a representation of how Lothar would imagine he'd be treated by her if he was to be honest about his feelings. Marianne then invites Lothar out for dinner the next day, but he says he needs to go to the dentist. Cut to Lothar having a whack. Then to him stepping on scales and doing some sit-ups, seemingly bleeding from his penis. Nice. Also, the camera work here as well as the score are excellent. This is fast becoming my favourite film by Jorg, and I didn't think anything would be able to top Necromantic 2. Cut to Lothar sweating out on the sofa and then to him cutting a woman's undergarment off her body. He reveals her breasts when we cut back to him on the sofa. He has a quick look at his cock and that's the end of that scene. Cut to Lothar opening a drawer which contains a knife, a shitload of lipstick and a wig. Throw in some cocaine and we got a party. Lothar selects his desired shade and shuts the drawer. Cut to him getting lipstick out of a handbag, popping his knob on the table, pulling down this woman's tights while fondling his belly and then drawing a target on his dick. He then puts a nail to it and hammers right through to the table. Why? Why the f*** are you nailing your c*** to the f***ing table, Lothar? It's a bit far to go for an I've got wood joke, innit? You need to have a Coke and a tuna sandwich and mong out to some snow patrol, you f***ing nutter. We then see him in a mask as he strips the religious woman's body and goes to have sex with her. Cut to the third nail going into the cock, him banging the dead body, and then the hammer hitting the blood splattered floor. Christ. Also, I'm only just now realising how much Lothar looks like my mate Jake. They have similar cocks. Cut to more dream dancing and then to Marianne and Lothar having dinner. Marianne thanks Lothar as they toast before digging into their pretty awful looking meals. She says she remembers Lothar telling her he planned to get married once and asks what made him change his mind, but he says he didn't. She just didn't realise that she almost became his wife. It seems he means Marianne here, and honestly I'd feel sorry for him if he wasn't such a hammering serial killing psychopath. Marianne asks for the bill and flashes her cash when Lothar looks at it and begins to imagine how she got it, hooking up with this bald-head brother here. The man looks at us with a gloating smile as Marianne asks if he wants a cognac. Lothar says no alcohol and we cut to the pair walking home. He suggests the next time they have dinner at his place and Marianne says she's due at the mansion the day after tomorrow before asking him if he'll accompany her again. Lothar says that's fine with him and they walk off as we stay here watching this man who pulls out a gun and shoots himself dead. The film then takes a strange documentary turn for a moment as the camera ceases to be an observer and more involved as it jerkily moves forward towards the dead man and the operator puts their hand in front of the lens. Suddenly this moment is made to feel real rather than just a part of the film. The music and sound are stripped away and all we're left with is this sudden and needless act of violence against oneself. It's striking to me because it's so unexpected, not just in the suicide but also the camera's change in purpose. Another excellent detail to add to the pile. Cut to Lothar and Marianne as she says goodnight. Lothar says he isn't tired and he'll make them some coffee as we cut to the living room where Marianne is smoking. He pops the drinks down then offers her a cognac to which she agrees. Cut to the bottle pouring out onto the floor and then to Lothar describing a nightmare. He says he's in a classroom while the teacher dictates something and he suddenly realises he's completely naked. He looks around scared someone might see then slips his hand between his thighs and finds no genitalia. I think that means you're worried about money, mate, or you want to your own mother. One of the two. Marianne then says she has to go to bed but Lothar insists they have one more. In the kitchen he sets the glasses down, draws for a knife then dumps out a bunch of pills which he breaks open and empties the contents of into Marianne's glass. He then pours in her cognac and mixes it up. Cut to Marianne downing her drink and passing out as Lothar finishes his. And then things get a little dicey. He checks to make sure she's asleep, takes away her glass, pushes the table out, strips her to her underwear, takes pictures of her, lays her down, takes more pictures of her, and then we cut to Lothar dropping his pants. Just a quick note about this sequence, I love the music of course, but also love this for being a continuous, almost 4-minute long unbroken shot. The camera eventually starts to spin above the action as if it's some sort of out-of-body experience for the unconscious Marianne, further cementing the dreamlike nature of the entire film. It also reminds me of this shot from The Death King, which features a similar score as the camera turns in the flat, serving to show the passage of time. Basically what I'm saying is I fucking love this filmmaker's style and the recurring motifs present in his work. Each film kind of mirrors the last one in these small ways and I just adore it. Lothar then calls her a slut as he whacks himself off over her unconscious body. And look how they represent him coming before flashing back to that same portrait.
Nichts weißt du, du Sau. Oh.
Now that's a lot of cum. Cut to Lothar waking up in bed. He sees some movement around his crotch, so pulls the cover back, revealing this. Oh, sweet heavenly Jesus, what the fucking fuck? What the fucking fuck is that shit? Why does it look so much like your mum's vagina? Where the fuck's the rest of her? Is he trying to say something? Why the fuck is he trying to say something? Cut to Lothar washing his face and pulling his fucking head open. Cut to Marianne waking up on the sofa, now fully clothed, when she's greeted by Lothar and then to him blowing up his sex torso. He pops a plaster on his nose, opens his briefcase of fun, then grabs his knife, which is being kept company by that fucking nightmarish toothy vagina facehugger. He bangs the knife in the case when the doorbell rings, which he opens, revealing the religious couple. Oh, so all of that was set before and now we've circled round back to the start. Cut to blood pouring down the wall, Lothar scraping some dry blood off the wall and then back to him mixing the paint once more. We then see him cutting the woman's bra off, touching his bloody stump of a leg and finally climbing the ladder to cover up his crime when tragedy strikes. Now we find ourselves at the start with Lothar dying as Marianne knocks on the door. The camera pans around the room and we see the dead religious couple wrapped in plastic. Marianne then eventually gives up and leaves. Cut to Marianne arriving at the mansion and being let inside. Cut back to Lothar as we see those same flowers dancing in the wind, a memory from his childhood, presumably the last time he was happy. We see again the shot of him stripping Marianne over this memory as in the background waves crash. The camera spins as we become Lothar's soul leaving him and once again see those flowers. Lothar then finally dies. Cut to this horse-looking thing and then to Lothar as he steps into the afterlife. He's greeted by this figure in a thorn crown who tells Lothar what the 5 fingers said to the face. We then cut to the final shot of the film, Marianne in the mansion ready for the fun evening ahead of her. The end! Well, nothing like an ending where everyone dies horribly to really make you think about how much I want Monica M to fuck me to death. Schramm is another absolute banger from a filmmaker that seems incapable of putting out anything other than top quality art house horror. Even though this is in my opinion the tamest entry in his filmography, the filmmaking behind it and the dream world that Jorg creates around our main character is by far his most immersive. The story here is a little more tricky to talk about than usual because of its non-linear nature. Basically, we're witnessing the final days of a sexual deviant serial killer as his mental state slowly begins to worsen. The film jumps around as we're offered a few vague clues as to the hows and whys of Schramm, the child running around the flowers, the woman's portrait, the dentist turning into a woman. When taken with the context of Schramm's deviance and addiction to death, plenty can be inferred about his origin, but nothing concrete is ever offered. There's no simple answer. His relationship with Marianne is interesting as it seems to be the closest thing that he has to any sort of normality. The fact that her job is what it is feeds into Schramm's character's own desires while also serving to torture him. To Schramm, Marianne is unattainable and this is probably what saves saves her from the fate most others meet at the murderer's hands. It's unclear whether or not she's aware of Schramm's love for her, but what is clear is that she considers him a real friend, possibly her only friend. Their relationship is sweet in this unconventional way and calls back to necromantic and unconventional relationships being the centre of those stories, especially in part 2 where the main character's desire to lead a normal conventional life is the main crux of the narrative. Yet another returning motif for Jorg. There's also the question of Schramm's leg. What's going on here? At first I thought the leg would act as an instrument to gauge where in time we were, the more injured it is being closer to present day. But this is inconsistent, most prominently in the moment the Schramm climbs the ladder. One minute the leg is flesh, although still looks stiff, and when he falls it's because of the leg breaking off. So then I thought maybe the fake leg was a figment of Schramm's imagination, like his leg is injured but he makes it much more extreme in his mind. But if the fake leg is the reason he falls, then what the fuck is going on? Again, everything's so incredibly vague it's hard to answer this without reaching, but it is yet another element that adds to the dreamlike nature of the film. The performances on display are great, with both lead characters coming off as real people. Even when things get weird, the performances are never cartoonish or overacted, with Florian as Schramm coming off as the quiet, reserved serial killer we've all seen in real life so many times before. What makes the performance even more impressive is how much of a joker the actor is in real life. Watching a behind the scenes documentary of Schramm really destroys the foreboding tone of the film, as Florian is constantly making the cast and crew laugh. He really does disappear into the character of Lothar, and while it's not a performance I ever found scary, I was surprised at how much I started to empathise and feel sorry for him. Presentation wise, the film is as great as Jorg's earlier work, with the music and editing all very enjoyable, but for me the unique aspect is just how much of a character the camera plays. Jorg has always been inventive with his camera work, but in this film especially, the camera plays a major role, from representing Lothar's soul to documenting the street man's suicide. Once again, it adds to that dreamscape of Lothar's mind as he relives these final days, and I just love it. The one aspect this film lets me down on though is the gore. For a film that's considered to be extreme by many, it actually ends up being super restrained. There are only 2 on-screen deaths, and while many others are suggested by Lothar's extensive lipstick collection, this is the only instance of violence against others we actually see. Sure, we get the ripped out eye, the vagina monster, and the throat slashing is quite brutal, but really the extremity lies in the sexual nature of the film. I always say this, but I could have done with a bit more death in this one. In the end, Schramm is a film that surprised me for how much I loved it. It's a film that's truly an experience, getting by on mood and tone rather than the events or extreme gore. It's also arguably Jorg's best film in its presentation and intention, that I highly recommend to not only fans of his earlier work and extreme horror, but cinema in general. So that was my review for Schramm. What do you lot think? This has honestly got to be one of my favourite films I've ever covered for the channel. It's a little bit more chilled than we're used to, but every aspect of the filmmaking is absolute peak art house horror for me. I fucking loved it. That's not to say that we don't get some good violence, with the religious bloke's neck getting open right the fuck up and that nailing. Good lord. Speaking of which, if you want to see Lothar that inflatable torso completely uncut and early, head over to patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons. There you can find the uncut version of this review, plus others with more stuff dropping all the time. We got the uncut reviews, slasher comic breakdowns, Patreon exclusive reviews, commentaries coming soon, and the Discord. We're also working towards funding my October's Daughter short, so if you want to be a part of that, head on over for as little as $1 a month. You can pledge more, I really appreciate it, as I honestly need the extra cash so I can take Monica M out on a date. So that's it for another week. Like the video, leave a comment and click subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Jonjo Lyons, and the only thing more horrifying than that toothy vagina monster is the fact that I'd probably still fuck it. For the story. And the orgasm. Mostly the orgasm.